Diplomatic relations between Iraq and the United States began when the U.S. first recognized Iraq. On January 9, 1930, with the signing of the Anglo-American Iraqi Convention in London by Charles G. Dawes, U.S. Ambassador to the United Kingdom. Today, the United States and Iraq both consider themselves as strategic partners. Given the American political and military involvement after the invasion of Iraq and their mutual, deep-rooted relationship that followed. The United States provides the Iraqi security forces millions of dollars of military aid and training annually, as well as uses its military bases. In 2020, Iraq voted to ask the United States and its coalition members to withdraw all of their troops from the country, with U.S. President Trump asserting that sanctions will be imposed against Iraq if the United States' troops were forced to exit Iraq. Meanwhile, Iraq has prepared a mechanism for the withdrawal of coalition troops from the country and begun discussing it with coalition members. According to the Office of Iraq's Prime Minister, the United States has promised to follow up on unauthorized use of Iraqi airspace and violations of its sovereignty. American commercial interaction with the Ottoman Empire began in the late 18th century. In 1831, Charge d'Affaires David Potter became the first American diplomat in the Ottoman Empire at the capital city of Constantinople. With the dissolution of the Ottoman Empire after World War I, the United States supported Great Britain's administration of Iraq as a mandate, but insisted that it be groomed for independence, rather than remain a colony. The U.S. recognized Iraq on January 9, 1930, when Charles G. Dawes, U.S. Ambassador to the United Kingdom, signed the Anglo-American Iraqi Convention in London. According to the preamble of the convention, the United States of America recognizes Iraq as an independent state. In this treaty, the U.S. also acknowledged that special relations existed between the UK and Iraq because the latter was a mandate under British protection according to the Treaty of Versailles. In 1932, Iraq terminated its mandate status. Diplomatic relations and the American legation in Iraq were established on March 30, 1931, when Alexander K. Sloan was appointed Charge d'Affaires of the American legation at Baghdad. The U.S. upgraded its diplomatic representation in Iraq from a legation to an embassy on December 28, 1946. On May 28, 1958, the U.S. recognized the Arab Union that formed between Iraq and the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan. U.S. recognition of the new state was accorded in an exchange of notes between the American Embassy at Baghdad and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Arab Union. In announcing U.S. recognition, the Department of State noted that the Arab Union's constitution stipulated that external affairs will remain as they are at the present time, with the two kingdoms that had joined to form the new state. Consequently, formal diplomatic relations were not established between the U.S. and the Arab Union, and diplomatic relations continued uninterrupted between the U.S. and Iraq, and the U.S. and Jordan. Relations between the U.S. and Iraq became strained following the overthrow of the Iraqi monarchy on July 14, 1958, which resulted in the declaration of a Republican government led by Brigadier Abd al-Karim Qasim. Concerned about the influence of Iraqi Communist Party members in Qasim's administration, and hoping to prevent Ba'athist or communist exploitation of the situation, President Dwight D. Eisenhower had established a special committee on Iraq in April 1959 to monitor events and propose various contingencies for preventing a communist takeover of the country. Qasim undertook numerous repressive measures against the communists throughout 1960, and this, combined with the John F. Kennedy administration's belief that Iraq was not important to the broader Cold War, resulted in the disestablishment of the PSI within days of Kennedy's inauguration as president. However, subsequent events would return Iraq to the attention of American officials. On June 25, 1961, Qasim mobilized troops along the border between Iraq and Kuwait, declaring the latter nation an indivisible part of Iraq, and causing a short-lived Kuwait crisis. The UK, which had just granted Kuwait independence on June 19 and whose economy was heavily dependent on Kuwaiti oil supplies, responded on July 1 by dispatching 5,000 troops to the country to deter any Iraqi invasion. At the same time, Kennedy briefly dispatched a U.S. Navy task force to Bahrain, and the UK brought the dispute to United Nations Security Council, where the proposed resolution was vetoed by the Soviet Union. The situation was finally resolved in October, when the British troops were withdrawn and replaced by a 4,000-strong Arab League force. The Kennedy administration's initially low-key response to the standoff was motivated by the desire to project an image of the